So today we're going to introduce some of the microtonal possibilities for using the Scala Regen. And under the hood there's a few different little parameters that I'm going to show you. We'll start from sort of the basic ways to change the tuning to some of the more advanced topics in this video. So first thing I want to show you, you go to the effects button, and that would typically be on this display. In the arrow right, you're going to get these three controls. Stereo spread is actually how you spread the partials across the stereo field, so it's not to do with microtonal tuning or anything. The timbre detune is an interesting one. It's a feature they added on the original to make the chords sound more natural, and it's just a very, very subtle detuning of every key. So that's kept on, and it's part of the character of the sound of the original. So that the Regen will default to that, but you can switch that. You can switch that off if you want, and you can also ramp it up, so you can exaggerate that effect. And I'm going to invite my buddy Leith Fleming-Smith to the keyboard, and he's going to play for us a chord, and you'll just see what that particular parameter does. Just goes through the kind of the gamut of making the chord slightly more richer, slightly more natural sounding, and then he kind of goes to that beating kind of sound that you get, and you're almost into microtonal possibilities with that. So that's one way to just make your playing slightly more interesting. A very simple feature, and as I say, the default is that it's a tiny bit, very subtle. Every key is slightly detuned a random amount. Octave Ratio is the next one that we're going to talk about. This defaults to 1. And what that means is that an octave of the keyboard, thankfully, is an octave in frequency in Regen. But we can change that, and if we increase that, let's say we put that up to 2, what we're going to find is an octave here will actually jump 2 octaves in frequency. So if you play Leith for us, an exaggerated way of showing that, and because he was playing from it's centered on A4, so he's playing from A4 up, he was getting twice as much frequency. From A4 down, he would get twice as low frequency, and A4 is always A4. So an exaggerated way of doing it, but if I set that to just a very small ratio above it, you can just vary your playing slightly. Even that's too much. That sounds like you didn't mean it. So what we can do is we can use the fine mode on this thing and just dial in some. Perfect, yeah. So another usage that I'm keen to point out is if we lower that now. So now as close as I can, yeah, so 0.5. So now what's happening is each octave on the keyboard will only actually go half an octave in real life, and so there'll be notes in between each single note. So you're getting microtonal, you're getting between the cracks, and one use of this that I like to point out, the drum kit on Anthony's library is an FM drum kit that he's created, and if we look at the partials on here, I'm looking at the crossfader, you'll see that each drum sound is an octave range of notes, and they're all the same volume. So if you play some of those drum sounds now, so we're getting the hi-hats here, they sound slightly different across that octave range. But one octave is not one octave, because if it was, that hi-hat would soon sound like a drowning cat or something. So the octave ratio here is 0.24, so it's only a quarter. So you're able to get a drum kit which you can quite quickly just tune, oh, I want this hi-hat and I want this tom, and fit in. So that's a useful, very quick way of making a sound like a drum kit, and adding variety, but not too much variety. And this can be tweaked to any parameter that works for your timbre. So that's the octave ratio. So the next thing we're going to talk about are the custom tuning possibilities. You access that from the session menu. First off is the tuning model. This was another thing, I guess, that gave the original synclavier the kind of character it had, was that the original voice cards could only have recreate certain discrete frequencies. So unlike a DAC of today, where you can interpolate and create any bass fundamental frequency you want, the original voice cards could only be stretched to do certain ones. So the E was a tiny bit flat, and the C was a tiny bit sharp, and they came up with a compromise that worked well for fifths, it worked well for thirds, etc. But it was a compromise, and just really in the same way that equal temperament or just intonation are compromises. That again is the default, and that brings the character to it. But if you wanted to switch that off, press this button and to toggle it on or off. So yeah, very difficult to tell. That's a very, very subtle feature. And then if I arrow right from here, I have custom pitch classes. So in this case, I could change every C to be so many cents sharp or flat, every C sharp, every D across the keyboard. So yeah, I could convert a MIDI keyboard to, rather than play equal temperament, it could play just intonation, for example. Or I could just make some of those slightly sharp or slightly flat, just to add a certain character, which makes you think when you hear the playing, it's like, oh, something's interesting with all the Ds and all the As or something like that. So this is where I'm going to invite Leith again to play for us, and I'll just mess around with the tunings of some of these pitch classes and just see if I can put him off whilst he plays something. You'll get the feel for what this actually does. Thank you, Leith. As with a lot of the screens, I was there going back and forth between the pitch class to change which one it is. If I double tap it, it arms it, so I can go, oh, that's C. I'm going to then change the sense, or I could double tap again. This is a B. Change the sense. If I double tap on the sense, I can also do it, and then I stay on the sense. So I can quite quickly double tap, change stuff, double tap, change stuff, sorry, double tap, change stuff. And I could quickly go through a little bit quicker than what I was doing there for demonstration purposes, but obviously Leith was playing. The other thing you can do with this screen is you can change the semitones. So for whatever reason, you could have multiple C's, multiple D's or whatever, and you can change them by semitones and cents. So that explains the custom pitch class screen. If I go to the right, I get a different page, custom MTS tuning. And what this can do is it can change the tuning of individual notes, not pitch classes, but individual notes. So again, I can arm this, and I can pick a key and it's going to go straight to it, and then I can change that. Now whatever I change here will be compounding whatever I did there. So if I change the C sharp plus 9 cents, and then I do plus 14, it's actually going to be 23 cent sharper for the C5, C sharp 5, and the other C sharps will be just the 9 cents sharper. So that's worth bearing in mind. If I wanted to, I can obviously reset that anytime. Confirm, tick, tells me I've reset it. And so now I can just play with this stuff. And in the same way I can set up every key. What you can also do on this page is you can use Scala or Scala, I'm not quite sure how you say that, files, but it's a format that you find over the internet with different types of tunings. So I've got some on an SD card, and I'll show you briefly how you would load one of those. So I'll put my SD card in, click load, and now I'll go to my user. My library is called test, timbres. I can scroll through these guys, and here, if you can see that on the video, but anyway, there's some Scala files and some keyboards. You need to map both types of files. So I'll call up 1219, so that means within 12 key, that means within yeah, 1 octave you have 19 keys, so we're going to get microtonal from this. So let's call that up, and that's give you the information that it's picked up on. Then we'll go back here and we'll call up the corresponding Scala file, tap to enter, and this is what it's doing to the pitch classes. And I can then change things individually from here if I want to, but you'll see when I go to my custom tunings that on this page quite a lot of them have been changed. Yeah, you can see the whole keyboard, MIDI keyboard, a standard MIDI keyboard, is now being mapped in a microtonal fashion. So why not invite Leith back to play something for us with a 1219 tuning. Truly wacky, inspired stuff. As you can imagine, there's such a massive amount of possibilities with this kind of thing. You could actually have 2 octaves and they'd be slightly different. So they could both be the same, and then this is the vanilla octave, and then these keys are slightly sharp and these keys are slightly flat. You can do all kinds of things with this, or you can you know, map your keys to just intonation. Or any number of things, and there's lots of Scala files on the internet that the Regen is capable of understanding. If you get something you like here, then don't forget you probably want to hit save state, because otherwise if you power cycle it's going to go back to the previously saved state. So the tuning is something that's saved in the state. If I save that now, it's going to save that, and if I'm going to take this on a gig or something and I've messed with the tuning, let's not forget to reset the tuning and then save the state. Now we're good to go. We're back to the standard tuning. So now we've swapped out the standard MIDI controller for an MPE enabled MIDI controller. This one's the Roly Seaboard Rise. When you do that, you want to go under the settings and the MIDI settings here and make sure Regen knows that this is an MPE one. The way the MPE protocol works is it uses all 16 channels so that you can have up to 16 voices individually pitch bend. So you actually now need to decide which MIDI channel Regen thinks this is sending. What we can do here is, if you scroll over, you can just toggle through the 16 MIDI channels. We'll set this to 1 initially. So I'm going to start from a blank session. When I erase my session, I've got various options. So 1 to 12 just means that these tracks are going to correspond to 1 to 12 MIDI channels. So that's what I want in that case. Confirm the erase. And then we'll find some timbres that are going to work well to demonstrate what you can do with an MPE interface. There are keywords on here, so if I wanted to, I could actually use the tag MPE to find some of those ones that work really well. But I'm just going to find some very simple ones. So the MPE is there, and then if I arrowed right, I would just be looking at the MPE ones. But I'm not going to do that in this case. I'm going to call my buddy Leith to help me demonstrate this. We'll start on track 1 with a solo horn, and we know that the MPE is sending to channel 1. Yeah, and then track 2 I'm going to set to the whistle, and then track 3 just to make it super clear how this works. We go back to the MIDI settings, and so if I now change that one to number 2, it's going to engage the whistle. And then I'll press it again, track 3, we're going to have the FM. The whistle in there as well, you could just change that to listen on track 3, and now you've got the whistle. So lots of possibilities with this keyboard or interfaces like this to add expression to your playing quite easily. We've kept that in the standard tuning model, but you could have used, on top of that, you could have used a custom tuning model, but we reset before we even did anything there. Another possibility for something like this where you are playing microtonally, you can get between the cracks, is a guitar. Obviously the guitar is an instrument where you can bend and move notes individually and strings individually. Probably the subject for another video, but if you have a guitar to MIDI interface, and not everybody's got a Rode keyboard sitting around, but some people have got guitars, and there's different types of interfaces you could get. If you can send MPE information that way through a guitar interface, you'll get that similar microtonality in your playing and expression in your playing. So that's all that we're going to talk about with the MPE stuff. We're going to move on to using a controller that's designed specifically for tonal playing and custom tuning playing. And so I'm going to snap my fingers, and we're going to change this Rode keyboard to a Lumatone. So here's the Lumatone that Leith brought with him today. The neat thing about the Lumatone, abundance of keys, and they can all be mapped to different MIDI notes. That's all well and good, and you could map this isomorphic layout to a traditional set of keys for tuning, or you could use the custom tuning on Regen that we showed you earlier and have different keys do different things. Some of them can be in a standard tuning and some of them can be out. When you have the custom tuning setup that you want, Leith has programmed this, it will then save with your session. So your instruments on the different tracks as well as the tuning can all be saved within a session and recall when you want to work on that project again. So this particular tuning and the Lumatone is very versatile and flexible to be used for different applications, but I'm going to invite Leith to explain a little bit about this tuning that he set up and the principles behind it, and then we'll ask him if he doesn't mind playing a little piece for demonstration purposes.
All right, well, so what I've done is I've split the Lumatone kind of in two bits here. The topmost is conventional. You can just play it like a regular piano. You got your white and your black keys. The bottom part, you still have your regular notes between the blue and yellow keys, in which you can play either up or down. But the green ones I set to be 50 cents between every semitone. So you can get in the cracks of what you're doing and drift in and out of microtonality if you wish. But again, if you just want to, stay on the straight and narrow, you can groove up here, and then you can actually drift down into the microtonal mapping if you wish. And it all is dependent upon what you're doing. But the flexibility of Regen enabled me to set this up so it's very multifaceted for performance use.
Right on. So the red keys, Leith, are the...
Ah, yes, the red keys are a visual guide. It's always handy to have a reference point, I find. And I put all the C notes to be red, just so that you have some sort of guide if you're going to outer space and all of a sudden you need that little link back to normal or whatever you're doing. You can find it very easily. And it's all custom mappable, so all the different colors can be assigned whatever you like for your own visual aids.
Okay, great. Well, I'll let you play it. final thing I wanted to discuss in this video is this little guy here, the Launchpad X, Novation Launchpad X. It's a good bedfellow with the Regen. It's a similar size. You can obviously put it in a backpack. I've just plugged it straight in controller mode, and that's all you need to get started really. And it has polyphonic aftertouch, which is of particular interest because there's lots of timbres on the Regen that would respond to aftertouch and can handle polyphonic aftertouch. You don't have to do anything special to get that. So I pulled up a timbre and I'll demonstrate. I'll play a chord and then I'll do aftertouch on all three, which would be like channel aftertouch, I guess. And then I would I'll just do aftertouch on the highest note of the chord, and you'll see that the algorithm for aftertouch is just on that one note. So let's do that. Admittedly subtle difference, but you get the idea. So this one and its big brother, the Launchpad Pro, the same buttons with polyphonic aftertouch, and the Pro's got a sequencer on it, so you can obviously sequence I think up to 4 tracks. So again, a perfect partner for Regen. And it doesn't stop there. For microtonalists, this is of particular importance. The Launchpad, and I think the whole family of Launchpad, is supported by this suite called the MTS ESP by Odd Sound. I'll put a link in the description. And what you can do with that suite is designed for alternative tunings. You can use different interfaces, but there's some software that comes with that you can actually download to these novations, different mappings. So it'll change the colours and show you where the keynotes are, and it'll show you where the off notes are, and you can set it up and configure it a little bit like the Lumatone, but obviously limited palette, however you like. And you can send information then from that suite to plugins. I guess most microtonalists are using plugins and DAWs and Contact and stuff like that, but you can send it to hardware equipment too. So the other thing you couldn't do with a microtone, with a Lumatone, sorry, is this. So if you have a certain configuration and you want it to go in a diamond fashion instead of, I know, mind blown, you can actually turn it on its side like that. So that's useful for certain types of tuning systems, I'm sure. What Regen doesn't now support, where are we? We're June 2023. It doesn't accept real-time or non-real-time tuning messages. So part of the MIDI MTS micro tuning system was the mappings that we discussed that this thing does understand, and then the other things that seem to be used less often are real-time sysx messages that come through MIDI and change the tuning either as a dump or on the fly. We don't currently support that, but certainly this suite does support that, and other products out there do. So if you were using that MTS suite, which I haven't loaded on here, so I'm not going to demonstrate that, you'd need a laptop to run the suite because it works as a plugin. So you need a DAW and a laptop, and then you would send to Regen through MPE is the obvious one, but you could also send the tuning models. You could have your tuning model the same on here and the same on there, like we did with the Lumatone, and you'll get something working. But yeah, that requires a laptop, another piece of gear, and it's all doable within a certain amount. But I want to show you just this on its own because I like that. I like a limited amount of equipment to get you a big sound. So that's what these guys will do. And if you had one of these, that's another option for you to research, certainly if you're going to get into any microtonal work. Okay, so that's it for microtonal possibilities. It's certainly given you an overview of how you would use this for alternate tunings. And I hope some people at least have found this useful or interesting. Thanks for watching. Bye.